Hi there, and thank you for joining UnSCRIPted. I'm Angela Kashuba, Dean of the UNC Eshelman School of Pharmacy. We have an amazing community here at the school, all working toward a shared goal of solving the world's most pressing healthcare challenges. I'm excited for you to hear unscripted stories of faculty, staff, students, alums, and partners. Today, I have invited Joe and Terry Graedon, hosts of the People's Pharmacy, to my office for a conversation. Welcome, Joe and Terry. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Dean Kashuba.
It's great to be with you.
So I'd like to start at the beginning. So, Joe, you're a pharmacologist.
Correct.
And Terry, you're a medical anthropologist.
Correct.
Can you talk about your journeys and how you selected those particular career paths?
I knew that I wanted to be an anthropologist and actually majored in anthropology in college, but I thought perhaps I would be a linguistic anthropologist. And we had a term paper assignment. We were supposed to record people talking and analyze it, phonemically.
Mm-hmm.
And my roommate had a sister who was with the Children's Defense Fund, working with the Welfare Mothers of Detroit, who were suing the school board of Detroit for not providing adequate school breakfasts. And she arranged for me to record the pretrial discovery. So I did my linguistic analysis, but I said, what I'm really interested in is how do mothers actually provide adequate nutrition to their kids? I want to look at, the health aspects of what's going on here much more. I mean, the language is interesting, but I'm really interested in the health. And that's how I got into medical anthropology.
Interesting.
For me, it was an undergraduate class that dealt with sleep. And after I graduated, I had the opportunity to work in a neuropharmacology laboratory where they were actually studying sleep and mental illness and depression. And I ran a sleep study. And it was fascinating. And after my time there, I went to grad school at University of Michigan where I met Terry. And it was when she dragged me kicking and screaming off to Oaxaca, Mexico, to a little tiny village called Santo Tomás de Mazaltepec, that I started writing The People's Pharmacy, a book that was supposed to help the layman learn about medications. Up until that time, there was no such resource. And so The People's Pharmacy was an attempt to make medicine understandable for everybody.
Okay. So this is a very interesting melding of pharmacology and medical anthropology together in the People's Pharmacy. Because I've been a fan of the People's Pharmacy since 1997 when I came to Chapel Hill and have been listening to it on NPR. But it's a book. It's an article, newspaper article. It's a web page. I mean, there's multiple ways now that you communicate to the public about medication. So can you talk about that journey of joining together and creating the People's Pharmacy as it is now?
As Joe described, he wrote the book first, and while he was doing promotion for the book, he discovered that he enjoyed doing radio.
And once I started doing live radio, I was talking about pharmaceuticals. I mean, that's what I knew. Double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled trials, that was where I lived.
Yes.
And then I got tired of just talking myself and talking and interacting with listeners. And I said, come on, Terry, why don't you join us? And she said, well, people are interested in more than just pharmaceuticals. Yeah. They're interested in all of the things that medical anthropologists study, which we learned about in Mexico.
Right. And, home remedies, remedios caseros, they're very important. They're important everywhere. But they really were important among the people that I have been talking to in Mexico. And I realized that they were probably important to our listeners here in the States as well.
So it was a blend, literally, of traditional healing practices
Yes.
and the latest and greatest pharmaceuticals. And what we've been doing for the last almost 45 years is combining our backgrounds, our skills, our knowledge, and paying very close attention to our readers and our listeners, because that's really, I think, the source of the energy that we get from what we do.
What we've discovered is that we like to listen to people. We believe them when they tell us about their experience. Their explanation isn't always correct. And I think that's where sometimes health professionals get a little hung up. They say, well, you can't believe what people are telling you. Yes, you can, as long as you're looking at exactly what they're telling you they have experienced, because most people don't lie about their own experience.
Yeah. So that's a really important lesson for our pharmacy students, because our pharmacy students, they come into our program and they say, well, we want to work with people. That's why we're here.
Of
We want
course.
to help people. We want to work with people. We want to improve population health. So can you give our students an example maybe of a story that you've heard that's a really good learning? It was a good learning opportunity of something that somebody was telling you about, an experience that they had where you could really learn something scientifically about that.
So one of Joe's early triumphs, really, which was a big struggle, was he was getting messages from a couple of readers, and at that point they were mostly readers of newspapers,
Yes.
saying, well, I've been taking Dalmane, it's a sleeping pill that my doctor prescribed, and I'm finding that it was offering morning drowsiness, which was terrible, but there was withdrawal.
There was
as well.
withdrawal when the person stopped.
And Joe contacted the drug company, and they said, well, we've never heard of it. I mean, we've heard of the drug, it's our drug, but we have never heard of this withdrawal problem.
I contacted the FDA. They said, we don't know, haven't heard of it either.
Yes.
But we wrote it up in the newspaper column and started hearing from many other people that they had had the same problem. Well, Dalmane, it is a benzodiazepine.
It is a benzo, a long-acting benzodiazepine, and now, of course, the package insert reflects that there is a withdrawal experience. But it's the listening, it's the paying attention, and then oftentimes taking action, whether it's with a drug company or with the Food and Drug Administration.
Yes.
And that's also true for some of the home remedies that we've heard about, like muscle cramps, for example. We now have a scientific explanation for that. And we learned about that from our readers, from our listeners. So listening, really key.
Yeah. Interesting. So listen to your patients. They have some really
Absolutely.
important things
They
to
do.
say. Yeah. And I love that link between home remedies and science, that there is actually scientific evidence to back up some of these
Not
things.
for all home remedies,
Yeah.
maybe not even for most of them, but certainly for some of them.
Yeah. Any other advice that you had, based on your experience and listening to patients and to the public, any other advice that you might give our pharmacy students?
Well, I think the reason the People's Pharmacy was successful, and that happened as a result of a show on Good Morning America many years ago, and I was talking about food interactions. And to me, that's a fascinating area. And it's a place where pharmacists can play such
Absolutely.
a critical role. Physicians are pretty busy these days. Nurse
Yes.
practitioners, PAs, they just don't always have the time to go into the depth of, well, what medicines are you taking? And I've got a list right here on my computer. Oh, and by the way, there are some foods that might pose a problem.
And pharmacists are very well versed in food-drug interactions and
Yes.
should take advantage of their opportunity to counsel patients when they have that opportunity.
Yes. That's great. Thank you for that advice. I want to turn to your hearts of service. You seem to provide a lot of service to the communities as well, not just in the work that you do for the People's Pharmacy. For example, Joe, you were on our school's Board of Visitors for 25 years,
Many
a
years.
long time.
Yes.
And Terry, you're doing some wonderful work with a number of organizations. Can you talk about the importance of service and what experiences have really been fulfilling for you?
You want to start with Guilford?
I was going to start with Guilford. I served 3 terms on the Board of Trustees for Guilford College. Now, I am not an alumna of Guilford College, and neither of our kids went to Guilford College, but we were introduced to Guilford College, and I was very excited about the idea of a small liberal arts institution that was really promulgating Quaker values. And so the idea that there is an institution of higher learning that is actively pursuing the installation of values was important to me, and I am pleased to see that Guilford appears to be doing very well.
Yes, that's
So for me, serving on the Board of Visitors was marvelous. I mean, it brought me to the inner working and the passion of this amazing School of Pharmacy, and I saw it go from 25 to 15 to big number 1, and what a joy to watch this organization just grow and flourish. We've also served, both of us, on the Duke Patient Safety and Quality Committee. And so we've been voices for patients.
And as actually also at Duke, we were on the Patient Advisory Board for a while.
We both have been very actively involved in what's called the e-patient movement. I don't know how you want to describe that, but it's basically giving patients a voice, a partnership in healthcare, and participatory medicine, which is something that we've been very passionate about for a very long time, is something that just it lightens up our souls. It's not just fun. It's like it feels the right path for us to take.
Yes.
And pharmacists probably will have heard of the idea of shared decision making. Usually that applies more to the prescriber than to the dispenser, but at the same time, pharmacists have much more contact with, the patient and how they're navigating their lives with this medication that they may be taking.
Because pharmacists now have so many roles in healthcare, not just in hospitals, but in research and in so many different areas, this opportunity to be the patient advocate and the voice with other organizations and institutions, I mean, that to us is really wonderful and exciting.
Yeah, and I think that absolutely resonates with our students of today. They want to be that advocate.
Absolutely.
So you have very busy lives between the People's Pharmacy and all of your service activities. What do you do for fun?
We actually have a lovely yard with a swimming pool, so that's part of our fun. But we also have individual sports activities that we appreciate.
Oh, that's terrific. Tell me more about those.
I am a karateka. We did a year in San Francisco in which I was doing my postdoctoral studies in medical anthropology at UCSF. And while we were there, I saw a poster saying, you could learn karate. And I thought, wow, I could learn karate. I need to do that in San Francisco because I won't be able to do that anywhere else. Well, it turns out that once a week is actually not quite often enough to learn very much karate. But when we came back to Durham, I discovered that there was a dojo here for women specifically. And I joined the dojo, and it was a wonderful community of eventually we also admitted men. But I earned my black belt in karate.
That's wonderful.
Now, for me, it's tennis. So I've played tennis since I was a teenager, and about 8 months ago, I had to start curtailing my tennis activities because my hip was reaching a point where it was complaining. But on December 1st, I had a hip replacement, and I must say I am back on the tennis courts and having the time of my life. So,
fantastic.
yes, tennis is my sport, and of course we love hiking with our dogs.
Wonderful. Well, I thank you so much for your advocacy, for your education. I am a huge fan of the People's Pharmacy on radio and in the News and Observer, your column. And it's just been a thrill to have you with us today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting us.
And I would love to thank you for watching. We just love sharing stories of those who make the UNC Eshelman School of Pharmacy excellent. We hope you'll join us for the next episode of UnSCRIPted, conversations with the people who are advancing medicine for life.